Continuing?
Yes, we'll continue the
Yes.
secret knowledge. And as we were just mentioning,
Mm.
again and again he contrasts this inner wisdom, which later on elsewhere he says, comes not by struggle or by thought. It comes when the heart is quiet. In the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. It acts when the mind is silent. In the mind, silence the transcendent acts. It can suddenly appear to us when prayer uplifts itself on the wings of aspiration and sincerity and reaches that abode. A prayer, a master act, a king idea. Otherwise, all is screened, subliminal. And the same sense comes again. Of course, there is a nice, interesting clock nowadays. I think for quite a few years, that used to be shown on BBC. It's also on YouTube now. The evolutionary clock. And if we take from the point the Earth came into existence till today as 24 hours, then till almost 11 p.m., that means 23 hours have gone by, you see that, or rather it takes for 1 year, that's the span. So till September, the earth was just cooling down. And then there is, the dinosaurs which come. And finally, man is born at midnight of 31st December. Just I think 7 or 8 minutes are left. So if you take 1 year from that point till now, but we think we are great because we are at the peak of evolution now. But that peak is nothing compared to the peaks that are beyond. And that is the sense here. The outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. As you were saying, that we base it on a previous knowledge. From the known, we try to go to the unknown. That is our big problem. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun. Inheritor of the brave animal mind. Animal mind, actually we pride ourselves on our mind, but even crows are engineers. And the spider itself, can make such intricate designs. The weaver bird can make a wonderful nest. So we are still largely under the influence of that kind of mind. Our intelligence, except in rare moments, still remains tied to small things and building little things out of that. So we have inherited that. Man, still a child in nature's mighty hand. So that's what that clock says, that we are just born 8 minutes back. In the succession of the moments lives. To a changing present is his narrow right. Even the present slips before we can catch it. So it's a changing present. And still, that's all that we have a right to. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face. Armed with a limited, precarious strength, he saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. And in this, he is not wiser than the ant. So he somehow that, he keeps piling up a future, not knowing what future has in store for him, not knowing what may happen the next moment. There is a very interesting story about a man here. He was drawn to make money out of shares. So mother has spoken that, it's a dicey thing, it's something which creates holes, etc. Anyways, he went into that. And then it grew on him. Money starts possessing, and he had started with a small amount, and he thought initially, okay, I will offer it to mother. But as it grew, he became more and more greedy. A time came when he lost his head. That's how I came to know this whole story. So, he didn't know that he has already certain amount of money in the shares. When he was in nursing home, he was one day given idli, and he said, I cannot afford it because I think it will cost at least 10 rupees. Whereas nursing home, it's obviously free. But he died in the consciousness of a pauper. Guess how much money he had in his holdings? 1 crore 25 lakhs. All that, one day, one day, one day, one day. And how nature can teach us. So here it is. That's why they say that while you still have things, energy, put it at the service of the Lord. Don't wait for a post-retirement plan that one day I will do this. So here it is. He, armed with a limited precarious strength, he saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's mate. So he uses all projections, studies the market, studies the things and everything, and this is how it is going to be. He plans everything, and when the planning is perfect, one little slip and everything is gone. That's it. So it's a struggling ignorance. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. He waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. So many people keep on, this reads good, let me see, is it worth pursuing or not? After 20 years, they are still weighing it. Sri Aurobindo sounds nice, but should I walk, not walk? After another 20 years, still they are weighing. And you remain on the shore. That's why Mother says, take a leap of faith. Plunge yourself. What may happen? You may hit a stone, fair enough. Try doing something worthwhile. That is so much needed in the yoga, this capacity to take a plunge. But man waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. Should I, shouldn't I, to be or not to be? He knows not what he shall achieve or when. He knows not whether at last he shall survive or end like the mastodon and the sloth and perish from the earth where he was king. So mastodon, we know that elephant, and the sloth, that creature, have disappeared. Dinosaurs have disappeared. There was a time when they were rampaging on the whole earth, and it took just precisely a few seconds and they were all gone in a moment. I was watching that documentary on how the dinosaurs disappeared. It's amazing. Just few seconds, as the scientists say, that meteor coming and hitting the earth, gone, flushed out. And the beauty was, at that point, because the impact was so great that much life on earth went away. But whatever survived, when it came up, it became now much more varied life, because they were a threat, dinosaurs were a threat to all other forms of life. They had disturbed the whole food chain. So look at this, that, whether he'll be perished from the earth, like where he was king. He is ignorant of the meaning of his life. He is ignorant of his high and splendid fate. So when we talk about fate, is it a good fate, bad fate? It's always a good fate. Because at the end of the journey, the master waits for us. I was reading a very nice story about this fate. Two children are babies in the womb are talking. One may have read it. That one says to another, we don't know what's outside. It looks like, they experience the pain and, something is pushing them out. So other says, I trust everything will be good. Says, how do you know? Oh, there may be mother outside. How do you know? You have never experienced. So it's true. But always the fate is splendid because the master is there on the other side waiting to greet us. And this in yoga is called Kalyan Shraddha. The faith that all will be well. At the end of the journey, it is going to be well. It doesn't matter. So here he says so beautifully and categorically. It's very powerful. He is ignorant of his high and splendid fate. Sri Aurobindo is not telling few persons. Everyone can choose this high and splendid fate. It's given to man. But man doesn't know. And then he describes, reveals a great truth about the gods who reside on the higher planes and who are aware, watching man climb tier by tier, layer by layer. Only the immortals on their deathless heights, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, masters of living, free from the bonds of thought, who are overseers of fate and chance and will. They weave the thread of fate. They intervene as chance. They create sudden unexpected twists and turns in our life. And we don't know why me. Why me? Because the gods have picked you up. It's so beautiful. And experts of the theorem of world need. What do we really need?
Theorem.
A faith that craves not defeat. The sweetness of a love that knows not death. The theorem of world need. We have our own theorem of world need. That, man needs roti, kapda, makan. He needs food to eat and a shelter. This is not what man needs. He will never be happy. That experiment people have tried and it doesn't make happy. The true joy comes through something else. Can see the idea, the might that change time's course. Come maned with light from undiscovered worlds. Here, while the world toils on with its deep, blind heart, the galloping hooves of the unforeseen event. They, time to time, these immortals, these gods, descend upon earth. They come near earth. They hear and they reveal, because this is their work. While man does not heed, he just walks by.
And then that line.
And bearing the galloping hoofs of the unforeseen event, bearing the superhuman rider near, and impassive to earth's din and startled cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. Impassive to the earth's din and cry. Sri Aurobindo, sitting in his room in Pondicherry, and all around was, this movement, that revolution, this war, what not was going around. Impassive to the din and cry. His eyes were focused on the far off supramental goal. He knew that all this will not eventually solve the real problem of man. It will not fulfill his real need. And so he gave himself to bringing that near for which earth and humanity craves. But doesn't even know that it needs that.
Many in fact have said that the superhuman rider Kalki
Is Kalki. That is the sense that came to me also.
Sri Aurobindo.
Yes, that Kalki is the last avatar according to the Indian thought. And he is imaged as riding on a blue horse, carrying a sword in his hand, and destroying what is termed as mlechas. Mlechas is basically beings of darkness. It's not a racial term which later on, many interpreted, which was a misinterpretation. So it destroys the beings of darkness by the sword of knowledge. Sri Aurobindo did that. The sword of knowledge is the Arya. And of course, the blue horse, his own light, his own tapasya, his own power. Through tapasya, he brings that sword of knowledge which destroys darkness. So he is, of course, Kalki. And when Sri Aurobindo was asked, he said, well, the details of the horse, etc., are symbolic and incidental. And the mother has put a final seal upon it when she said, I always knew that Sri Aurobindo is the last avatar.
Yes.
And then she says, the last avatar in a human body. So the Kalki brings down the heaven upon earth. The work that Sri Krishna and Christ attempted in their own way. So he brings down that final kingdom, establishes that kingdom upon earth, which is the goal of religions, which is also the secret aspiration of the secular movements, which also science wants, terrestrial perfection.
Yes.
So that is the work of the Kalki. So superhuman rider, quite true that, it's about the avatar and the gods who accompany him.
And the last avatar.
And the last avatar.
Beyond
the
that
Kalki.
will be
Yes.
Satchidananda.
Yes. As lightning leaps. Again, a poem of Sri Aurobindo. A strong son of lightning came down, armed with the flame. Wonderful it is. As lightning leaps, as thunder sweeps, they pass and leave their mark on the trampled breast of life. This mark is never erased. Thousands of years pass by, skeptics, sands of time will cover the physical places, and people will doubt whether something like that existed or not. But those who are inwardly open can still hear Christ's summon and the flute of Krishna. Sri Aurobindo has just begun. So it leaves the stamp. That stamp earth cannot erase. It's the signature of the Lord. Above the world creator stand. This we'll read subsequently, because at another place, even more powerfully in the secret knowledge, few pages down, he speaks about these world creators and how they act. And when we read it, it's almost like it jolts us. Because normally, we think, especially in India, you have so many gods. So you always believe if this god cannot satisfy, some other god will do your needful. So we make a beeline before all the gods. 1,000 rupees darshan of the Lord, who will give you money. Another 500 rupees who will give you a nice wife or husband. Another one for child. So there are plenty of gods in each one. But that's not how the gods are. Most of such places are occupied with dark beings, with beings of the vital world. Many of them hostile to truth. And few, yes, are reflections of the gods on the vital plane. But what the true gods are, the immortals, the world creators, that is revealed in another passage. Maybe we can stop with that, and then when we meet next, we'll come back to this page, because Sri Aurobindo reveals a great truth. Thus shall the mass transcend him.
Yes.
But since we are at the gods, we'll just read a little bit. Here itself it is, page 57. It shakes us. It shatters all our ideas of gods and angels.
Yes.
What do they do? How do they act? It starts with two are the poles, two are the ends of the mysterious plan. And then he speaks of the first end, the other end, the topmost end. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear, the spirits bare and absolute potencies burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. These are the supramental Godheads. The ray no eye can bear. And little bit of them comes down on the borders of the overmind, the four great, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the great goddesses who prepare man for the supramental working. And they are also there in the Vaishnava tradition and in other tantric traditions, these four original gods. In the Vedas also they are there. How do they act, these original gods? A rapture and a radiance and a hush delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain, in his inalienable bliss they live. You can't, blackmail them by your tears. You are a great God. Please revive this state of mind. I'll give you this barter. I will become your devotee. Nothing. But how do they act? That also is described. Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will, Only His law they count and Him obey. They act only at the behest of the Supreme. We can't make them, act according to our wishes. That I am going to offer you 5,000 rupees and now you must intercede on our behalf. Vital gods do that because they love to have their empire, but not the true gods. And that's why Sri Aurobindo said it's so important to reach the plane of the true gods, because when they act and we are prepared by their action, that we can really receive the supramental. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve, not even helping humanity. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe of worship they refuse.
There it is.
Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. So when they don't fulfill what we want, you are not a god. They don't care. Unmoved. Loss is whose? Ours is the loss. Unmoved by all cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. Look at this line just with this adjective. It's not that they don't listen to the prayer. They listen and they pass on. But not ignorant prayer. Give me this, give me that. They reckon not our virtue and our sin. They don't even act based on this. So he's a saintly person. Let's do good to him. He's a sinner, I condemn him. No. They have their station in that inviolable source of light and might. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender is their source of might, a still identity, their way to know. So that's how they are completely immersed in the Supreme. And as they get the command, they act. And look at these last two lines on this page. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes. And yet, without them, cosmos could not be.
And a deep surrender
Yes.
is
to
their
the Supreme.
source
Yes.
of might.
That's it. They are connected to the Supreme all the time.
And surrender is the key.
Key. That, of course.
Of
It
this
is the
yoga.
key of this yoga. It's impossible to take a step in this yoga without surrender. Few lines later. So how do they help man and earth? Page 58. Their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. They are like, the very fact they are there. Their presence draws us upward by a kind of negative gravity, if we may say, like the sun burning lonely above is a source of inspiration. Man looks up to the sun even when our eyes cannot gaze at it.
Yes.
So just their presence, their aloofness. Look at Sri Aurobindo. People often, why don't you come out and help the world? Sri Aurobindo did not go out, nor did the mother. Once she came in permanently. And yet, Sri Aurobindo, while in his lonely room, like the sun draws all the planets and all the life that exists on that. So he drew everything that was ready for the light towards him, like a magnet. Everything went near her. So this is how their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's calm. So when gods grant our prayers, they are good. When they don't grant our prayers, they are better. Heaven's wiser love rejects the mortal's prayer. Why? Because then we look for eventually that calm, our passion. Our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscient's light. Only when we are shown that whatever we knew is not knowledge, but scraps of information. When it is broken aside, when it doesn't help us, then we are ready for true knowledge with utter humility and surrender. So that's how they help. our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotent's force. Only when repeatedly man is put back into the mud that he wakes up to the need of that omnipotence within him. Confronting death, he seeks immortal life. Otherwise, if things were very easy, we would never harbor that force. Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell. Look at these lines. And the harsh utility of death and tears. It is wisdom and love that created hell, and not a sadist God. It's a shortcut, cutting through a tunnel in emergency.
Yes.
Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell and the harsh utility of death and tears. So they don't rush to cut the cocoon of the caterpillar. In fact, they stop the hands that are going to relieve. And you feel helpless.
That line has always intrigued me. None can enter heaven who has not passed through hell.
How else we'll become ready and purged of all darkness? Hell removes that. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorism, 2-3 aphorism. One is, O misfortune, blessed art thou, for thou hast made me see the face of the eternal. There is another where he says, grace is not only that, when I survive in a boat capsize, when all the rest are drowned, grace is also that snatches away the last straw from my hands, and I drown while all the rest are saved. So you see, it turns all our ego-driven conceptions, they are dashed against the rocks. Because without that we cannot enter that utter vastness. Acquiescing in the gradual steps of time. So they know these steps. They know that, it cannot be, you can't leap across. So if we try to leap, they push us back. And we say, oh, we fell. We didn't fall. We were pushed back. It's like the story of Trishanku. So by the power of Vishwamitra's tapasya, he is made to ascend to heaven. And as he goes, the guardians of the heaven push him down. You are not ready. So again he comes, Vishwamitra goes very furious. So 3 times he does it, 3 times he is pushed down. So eventually he creates a parallel heaven for him, which is a different thing altogether. Sri Aurobindo refers to this parallel heavens which are created by man's own mind, such states of consciousness, which is fine, that is available to man. But you cannot ascend to the real home of truth without being ready. So there are steps of the ascent. Nobody can just take us like this and put us out there. The mother will take us from the kindergarten through to knowledge. At most maybe in Dolafon or towards perfection, you may skip a class and be double promoted. But there is nothing like triple promoted, quadruple promoted. It doesn't work like that. So she takes us. But to imagine that just because she is with us and she is omniscient, omnipotent, so tomorrow we should get transformed by a magic wand, no. So acquiescing in the gradual steps of time, careless the seam of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that rends its body and life, above joy and sorrow is that grandiose walk. They have no portion in the good that dies. Mute, pure, they share not in the evil done, else might their truth be marred and could not save. And then these last 3 lines with which we can stop. Alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes. Now you see how powerful this one line is. What are the God's extremes? The dark and the bright pole. The gods who dwell in the luminosity above and the titans who dwell below. The heavens and the hell. There is a truth in both. And the soul must have both experience. It must experience hell. Taste the bitter cup so that the diabetes, the spiritual diabetes he has because of the too much sweetness is measured by the strength. Otherwise, it will be just too bad. So, sweetness and strength, as Sri Aurobindo says in the synthesis, both are necessary. Saumya and the Raudra. So, those domains develop the sweetness and these develop strength. The titans come to challenge us. So, alive to the truth that dwells in God's extreme. These are also teachers. They are sent to make us grow in strength. And they are also teachers. They are meant to make us grow in sweetness. They are not opponents. The slow outcome, alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes, awake to a motion of all-seeing force. Everything it knows, everything it sees, our most random steps, our falls, our rise, everything it sees. All-seeing force, the slow outcome of the long, ambiguous years. For years and decades we know not whether we are in or we are out. Amrita for so many years was so close to Sri Aurobindo. And when mother is coming, suddenly some of those time guardians, they tell him, you are not to come, only inmates are allowed. He says, what? I am not an inmate? Just because I don't sleep in the house, I am not an inmate? He gets very hurt. And the same story continues till date. Despite Sri Aurobindo clarifying so often, many of my disciples are living outside the ashram. This is Sri Aurobindo's words. But still, no. This is the place for disciples. All others are someone else.
And many who are closest to Mother are far from her.
Far from her. So here it is. Awake to a motion of all-seeing force, the slow outcome of the long, ambiguous. So this is the ambiguous years where we know not. And the unexpected good from woeful deeds. Sri Aurobindo writes in letter to Mrilani, his wife, very often in this world, God brings good out of evil. Krishna comes because of Kansa and Rama because of Ravana. The curse, in Ramayana the story is that Kekai reminds Dashrath of a boon that he had given her in the Devasur fight. And the boon was that I will, one day you ask 3 wishes. So she says, no, not now, but you are a gentleman, I'll ask it when I need it. So when Rama is being coronated the king and her son is not, because he had 3 wives. So then at the council of some lady who worked in the palace close to her, he said, now is the time I need your boons. So he says, okay, what are the boons? Fine, I have granted. I am the king, I am ready. She says, first is that Rama will not be the king. That's heavy on his heart. But still it's okay. The second is make my son the king. And the third is, because she wants to make sure that all doors are closed, banish him to the forest for 14 long years. Now, it looks like evil. Many people regard her as evil, woeful deeds. But because Rama was banished, Ravana was decimated. He wouldn't have dared to come to Ayodhya and pick up Janki. And a whole lot of asuras in Dandakaranya got eliminated because that woeful deed, one woeful deed by a woman, led to such wonderful events that were to follow. So, this good that comes from woeful deeds. And this last line, and the unexpected good from woeful deeds, the immortal sees not as we vainly see. He looks on hidden aspects and screen powers. He knows the law and natural line of things, undriven by a brief life's will to act, unharassed by the spur of pity and fear. He makes no haste to untie the cosmic knot, or the world's stone jarring heart to reconcile. In time he waits for the eternal's hour. We'll close with a small story, real story. when all this was going on, the problem between Auroville, ashram, society, all this was happening. So some well-meaning persons wanted to make a effort to bring them together and make them sit and talk and, so that there would be harmony. So they went and asked Nalnida, should we do it? He said, no, don't try this way. It will come spontaneously when man grows into the Gnostic consciousness. As he grows in consciousness, it will come spontaneously. See, now, if we do it artificially, the problem is it breaks down again. So in time, he waits for the eternal Savar.
Yeah.
Of course, harmony is a must, but it has to come when man is ready for that. Man's heart must have peace, but he must deserve that peace. Right now, Rudra holds the world in the hollow of his hands. And that's what he says in Essence on the Gita. So the debt to Rudra must be paid. It is through war and tears. Trojan war. So in time, he waits for the eternal Savar.
And Mother has named the flower of the hydrangea collective harmony.
Yes.
And she says it is a work undertaken by
the divine.
And only
by
divine.
the divine.
Yeah. Yes.
I think on that note we can stop today.